So hi everyone, welcome to MOA's third meeting of the year. And today we'll be introducing Tina Tran, who is currently an SJSU nursing student who's gonna graduate next month. Can we get to the next slide? But before we get started, we're gonna go over disclaimer and rules and about our club.
Okay, so I'm sure all of us are pretty familiar with disclaimer and rules, but just to brief over it very quickly, we ask that everybody please respect officers and guest speakers by muting yourself when anybody is speaking, being polite to everyone in call and chat, and we ask that you do not ask any diagnostic questions, just to make sure that any healthcare professionals or students are comfortable. Second of all, if we do have any members who are disruptive, we're gonna, unfortunately, any of the officers will cast their wrath and unfortunately you'll be kicked out of the meeting. So we want that not to happen. So remember, please be respectful at all times. Another note is that the meeting is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel very shortly. And if you're not comfortable being put on YouTube, you can save your questions at the end of the meeting when the recording has stopped.
And if you're participating in the attendance point system, remember to sign out on the Google form at the end of the meeting with the word of the day. And we will link that in the chat after the speaker has finished presenting. And if you cannot attend the meeting live, you still have 24 hours to earn full points from the time that the meeting is published onto YouTube. And at the end of the year, the member with the most amount of points wins a prize. And you can earn bonus points by participating in community service events, and just send this proof to our email.
So these are the upcoming events that we have for this quarter. On 11/12, which is today, we have Tina Tran, who's a nursing student. And next week, in exactly 1 week from now, we'll have a virtual bonding event. And this will take place on Discord. And we'll work on our college applications because, you know, the UC application and the CSU application are due on November 30th. So if you want to work with us, then please join the Discord and yeah, we can bond over that. Or if you're not a second year who's applying to college this year, you can also do work or study in that same room, because we'll have different rooms, a study room and a college app room, but you can always join the college app room even if you're not working on it, if you're comfortable to do so. And 2 weeks after that, on December 3rd, we'll have an in-person bonding event, and more details will be sent out later on. So if you're interested, join the Discord and emailing list.
So if you guys are interested in getting involved, we have an active opportunity spreadsheet. And here you can find opportunities involving scholarships, internships, programs, conferences. And we also added a subsheet at the bottom called resources. And this is organized by different aspiring careers. So if you're a specific major or on a specific health track, you can just go to that section and find resources that are tailored to your career aspiration. And just make sure to scan the QR code to gain access to the spreadsheet.
Okay, so now, like I mentioned earlier about the Discord, we're gonna have the study session on Discord. as our virtual event. So if you're interested, please join our Discord. And if I will go over how to join the Discord in the next slide. So here's a GIF of how to join the Discord. It's really blurry, but like it does the job. So as you can see from the GIF, you basically have to go to the rules channel on the left side and read through the rules. And then afterwards, you have to react right there with the logo emote right there, right here. It's gonna react right here. And yeah, so do you see on the side, you got like those channels? Yeah, so that's basically our system, our Discord system. So in order to gain access to the rest of these channels, you need to react to the rules. And if you're having trouble with this, please message me or refer to the rules explanation channel on the side. Do you see right there below rules? You can do that or message me. And if you're still having trouble, at the very end of this meeting, I will share my screen to anyone who's still having trouble with Discord. So yeah.
Hello. Okay, sorry about that. So here are all social media and Linktree and email list. Make sure you check them out for any club updates. And especially it's really important that you guys are part of our email list because we'll be sending out email for club events and also very important opportunities. So yeah, get connected with us.
Okay, all right, let me try to swap over and I will share my screen. Okay, perfect. So thank you for the introduction earlier. As the officers mentioned, my name is Tina Tran and I am a San Jose State nursing student who is going to be graduating in like 3 weeks. So the table of contents, we're gonna be going a little bit over my background, what I did before nursing school, how nursing school is like for me now, and some words of encouragement. So first of all, my introduction. Like I mentioned, or well, I didn't mention yet, but I was born and raised in San Jose, so I've lived here all my life. And it has breeded to my boba addiction. So my interests outside of nursing is just being an overall foodie and going to music festivals. I am currently going to the Valley Foundation School of Nursing, which is the nursing school at San Jose State. And I started my program in January of 2019. And I also have a Nurstagram. If anyone wanted to follow me along on my journey, it's at NurseTiza on Instagram. Okay, so that's a picture of my school. Like I said, I go to San Jose State and I am a nursing major, but I also picked up 2 minors along the way, which are public health and deaf education. And so on top of my nursing curriculum, I had to take extra classes in order to fulfill those requirements to get minors. And I am graduating next month. So why did I choose SJSU? Initially, you know, like outside of high school, I did want to go far away for school like every other person wants to, but when I was looking at like, you know, the UC applications, there weren't very many programs that had nursing majors, and CSUs were the most, like the only system that had the most nursing programs. And so I think that's why I leaned towards San Jose State more specifically. And since it was close to home, obviously I would get placed at hospitals near here and I would be more likely able to find a job around here versus if I, you know, went to San Diego and did my clinical rotations there, it might be harder for me to find a job here if I wasn't matriculating through those hospitals. And of course, it was the most affordable option for me versus other nursing private programs around here. And I did consider going to community college, but I also wanted to just get my bachelor's instead of, my associates in nursing and then going to a bridge program. I think looking back at it, there are definitely benefits to doing an associate program than doing a bridge program as a bachelor's, but this just seemed like the best option for me at the time, and I have no regrets. And so extracurriculars, last summer, I was one of 50 students selected for Mayo Clinic Summer 3 externship. And so I spent my summer there in Rochester, Minnesota at the #1 hospital in the nation right now. And it was honestly like one of the best experiences I've had, because with COVID-19, I got a lot of my clinical rotations cut off or, cut short just because they wanted less people in the hospital. And so it was really nice for me to be able to have additional patient care experience last summer. And then the summer before that, I did an internship through Community Health Partnership in UCSF, where my friends and I created a COVID-19 activity book for the East Side San Jose community, and we were recognized on the news and some other local sources as well. And I think, having my project in this internship and being able to talk about that for my essay in Mayo Clinic's application probably made me stand out a little bit more than the other students, because my GPA is just like, okay, it's not a 4.0 or anything. But in terms of like clubs and student organizations and stuff on my campus, I'm very involved with all the clubs. In particular, like we have a nursing fraternity on campus. I'm part of that, and some other like tutoring programs as well. And I'm also the president of my cohort. Okay, and any tips to current undergrads? I think like I spent a lot of my time like trying to be part of a lot of things and trying to build up my resume, because I felt that I was not very well equipped, or, I think mentally I was just trying to find ways to build gaps in where I felt that I was lacking as a nursing student. But in the end, I think, you also have to take care of yourself and not spread yourself out so thin. And so that is something that I would keep in mind. And classes and nursing school applications. Of course, every nursing program has different requirements. And so I would definitely do my research. Like, for example, SF State and San Jose State, they have different science requirements. And then I have a link for SJSU nursing's requirements. And so let's go through some of them. The prereq courses are generally the same for many of the CSUs. I know East Bay is very similar to this. SF State is also similar, but I remember that there was something different about the science component. I believe they might require an additional one. And so you take these classes, and for SJSU specifically, I know that you have to apply to, oops, what happened here? Okay. You have to apply to SJSU itself and also the nursing program after. So you could be accepted into San Jose State, but not necessarily the nursing program. And a little bit more about that, every semester they only take 60 students. And for transfers to San Jose State, I believe that they only take transfers for fall start. And so within a year, we have 2 start dates in the fall and in the spring. And fall is open to San Jose State students and transfers. And so that was also why I decided to just go straight into SJSU, because the spring prioritizes only SJSU students, and transfers aren't considered in that application pool for spring start. And moving on, other things that you can consider for your nursing school application are just volunteering, taking a CNA course and working as a CNA, or any other healthcare work experience. I know a lot of my friends volunteered at Kaiser or several different hospitals, or they work in a nursing home. It could be truly anything as long as it's healthcare related, and it would add a few points to your application. And I don't remember all the schools I applied to, but I believe it was 5 or more in 2018. I applied to most of the CSUs in this area and a few private schools in Northern California, like Dominican University of California, USF. I can't remember, and I think the rest might have been just the CSUs. And what makes you stand out as an applicant? For the most part, it's just your high science GPA. And so I would really focus on getting the best grade that you can in those specific courses. And of course, your community involvement and healthcare experience. And tips to future nursing school applicants, I would just keep track of what programs you're interested in. So at the time, I made a whole spreadsheet of what programs I'm interested in, when their applications open, when they're due, what requirements require of each program, and the pros and cons of which and why I would prefer one over the other. And some programs actually also ask for letters of recommendation, but SJSU doesn't. And so I remember that I started my spreadsheet pretty late, and so I had to scramble to find my letters of rec in time. So do your research ahead of time and make sure you go to information sessions for each school. If you go on their School of Nursing website, I'm sure they will have information on like an in-person or a Zoom session. And you can also even email like the head of nursing and express your interest in the program and ask more questions to clarify as well. And also, last but not least, talk to students from that program for additional insight. Like I had known somebody from my school who attended SJSU nursing, so I messaged them to ask, is this program worth it? Like, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Just because, everything that's branded is not always the best thing up front. And so the day-to-day breakdown of a nursing student, it's kind of sad. If I'm being honest, like in the morning, I'll wake up, eat breakfast, get ready for a clinical shift, which is usually 7 to 7 for me right now. So it's a 12-hour shift, but of course you don't want to be there right at 7. You want to be there around 6:30 to be able to get your stuff ready, research your patients, and make sure you know what types of diagnosis your patients have, what medications you're going to give, and be prepared just in case the nurse who is supervising you asks these questions and that you're prepared. And so 12-hour shift goes, and then I'll get home, shower, eat, study, sleep, and repeat. This is just of my schedule now because I'm in my last semester. I'm in something called like a preceptorship capstone where we have to complete 160 hours of clinicals. And so a typical week for me is like going to clinical 3 days a week. And then of course, having to work 2 or 3 days out of that week, and then just studying and doing everything else in between. But on top of that, trying to manage my extracurricular activities as well. But in the beginning of the program, you will typically go to clinicals 1 to 2 days a week. And depending on the type of shift, it could be 8 or 12 hours in the morning or the nighttime. It just really depends. And then you'll also have theory courses and skills courses and everything else you have to balance in your life. And so these are some pictures from my nursing Instagram. Top left is just me trying to take aesthetically pleasing notes and pretending that I'm being productive studying. The right would just be me in simulation lab during my pediatric rotation where we were learning to give injections to babies and swaddling them and all that good stuff. And then bottom left is me in the simulation lab. And now this is super interesting because the mannequin that is in the picture with me, it actually talks, it has a heartbeat, it has a pulse. And we usually do like our skills evaluations with this. And so we'll go in and whoever is, the voice behind the patient will just come up with some crazy scenario. And you as the nurse in the situation would just have to figure out what's going on, what to do next. And so that was just me helping out in the simulation lab for the lower semesters who were doing their evaluations. And then the last picture is just a picture of my pretty cohort. And so nursing school is a huge learning curve. Like I remember thinking at the time when I was taking anatomy and physiology that it was one of the hardest classes that I've ever taken. But I changed my mind quickly once I started nursing school because A&P is hard, yes, but you're kind of just learning about the mechanisms of the body and not really applying it to anything else. You just learn what the body does and why it does it. But when you're in nursing school, not only do you have to do that, but you also have to apply it to, how your patient is presenting. Like, oh, they have decreased urine output today. Why is that? And what hormones contribute to that? Maybe why are their lab values and how that, affects the patient and what you can do to help alleviate some of their symptoms. And I think like the critical thinking aspect of it was the most difficult for me to grasp, just because in anatomy and physiology and other courses like that, I was mostly just memorizing like, oh, the heart does this, this is where the blood flow goes, and blah blah blah. But in the hospital, your patient is not going to have a normal heart blood flow. You have to think like, they have like their right ventricle is larger than the left. And so that's why, they're experiencing this. And it was just really hard for me to just sort of being able to put all the pieces together. But, as I progressed through my nursing program, I feel like I've improved a lot. And of course, going to clinicals, you get a lot of practice doing that critical thinking skills as well. And so I would just suggest you to build good study habits now, because in nursing school, you will definitely need to have that down and, determine what type of learner you are. And I found that I like to rewrite my notes a lot of the time, and it helps me remember things, and also visualizing things. I would like to draw them out. And active recall is super helpful. So what I also like to do is just sit down with a friend and just ask each other questions. And if I were to get something wrong, I would remember like, oh, my friend told me that I should think about it this way instead of, the way that I was previously thinking about it. And of course, learning how to say no, which is the most important thing. Like, you are always going to want to go eat out with friends, catch up, do all these things. And though that is important, yes, you also need to remember that nursing school is important and exams happen like every 2 weeks. And so sometimes it feels like you don't really get a break. So yes, still go out with your friends and catch up, but remember that, you have other priorities, and remember to say no to other commitments as well. And so if I could do it again, like I said, I would stop being so hard on myself and have better self-care, because I think, I tried to manage a lot of things at once, and I would put my priorities at the bottom of the chain and put, nursing school above and other commitments, extracurriculars and everything again. But I would have been better at delegating some of my tasks for extracurriculars. That's one. And so that I could have time to focus on other things for myself. And some tips and words of encouragement. I know the process of being a pre-nursing student is very daunting and stressing when you go to these information sessions and they tell you how competitive it is. But just remember, why you want to go to nursing school, and it'll be worth it when you get it, because it's not if you put your mind to it. And once you get there, you'll just be reminded of, the hard work that you put in when you make a difference in your patients' lives. Okay, and I guess that's it, unless anyone has any questions before you guys wanted to take the group photo. I'll stop screen sharing.
Oh, sorry. Before we take the group photo, now we have like 30 minutes open to an open Q&A.
Yeah.
So if anyone here has like any questions for Tina about the nursing process, how she's doing at nursing school, or just how she's doing in general, you could paste it in the chat or unmute. So
Okay.
we have one question that asks, how did you decide you wanted to go into nursing school in comparison to the other health fields?
So I am not sure if many people can relate to this, probably. growing up, in an Asian household, your family wants you to become a doctor. And my eldest cousin is actually a doctor. And so everyone was like, you're smarter than her. Why don't you go to medical school and all this stuff? But, like I like talking to people and I really value bedside nursing because I feel like I am actually like, I have like a tangible value on how I can make a difference in a person's life. And so, at the bedside, like if a patient is struggling with something, I can provide the right resources for them to move in the right direction. And I'm actually helping them progress towards, the healthier side of the spectrum. And I love, of course, much respect to the doctors and everything, but they just go in, examine the patient, tell you what to do, and then they leave. And I also didn't find myself, interested in that heavy of a responsibility. And so I decided to go into nursing for that reason. And also, I was still not sure of what type of specialty I wanted to go into. And so nursing, you can do anything. You can work at a school, you could work in the hospital, you could work in a clinic, or any type of age group. And also, if you want to get your master's in nursing, you could teach after or become a nurse practitioner, which is, also a physician who can prescribe medications at the bedside and do all that types of stuff too. And so I thought that nursing was the most flexible and most flexible journey for my career. Oh, the chat is blowing up. Sorry, I'm like losing track of the questions.
Don't worry, I'll read them out. Someone asked, is your COVID book still available? Amy would love to share it with her brother.
Yes, I actually picked up a couple copies, and so I'll try to mail them over or send them over to you sometime.
Here, I'll help navigate the questions. So Ronak asked, what was your TIA score? I'm so sorry if I butchered that. If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, I do not mind sharing at all. So my T-score was not as high as I wanted it to be. I think it was like 85, 86. It was like mid 80s to high 80s, but it definitely wasn't a 90. That's what I wanted. But I had a 4.0. And so I hoped that my terrible T-score would be pulled up with my GPA. And so I guess I just got really lucky that at the time my impaction score was enough to get into SJSU's program.
Okay, one more question. Thank you for sharing that. Did you, Brittany and I think others are interested, did you start at a CC then transfer to SJSU?
I did not. So out of high school, I started at SJSU. However, to save money, I was part-time at SJSU just so I could get the benefit of applying in the spring as an SJSU student. And so while I was part-time at SJSU, I took the majority of my classes at a CC at Evergreen and SJCC to be specific. And so also a benefit of that was, I don't know how De Anza works with your grading system, but when I went to Evergreen, the grade system was just A, B, C, D. And in SJSU, it's A minus, B plus. And so if I had gotten an A minus in any of my courses, my 4.0 would just plummet. And so I decided to take the majority of my science courses at a CC. And so I remember like my physiology grade was like a 90 point something. I barely clutched an A, but if I had a 90 point something at SJSU, it would be an A minus and thus my GPA would be lower.
That's super clever. Now I'm regretting not being an EDC student now, but moving on to the next question.
Is De Anza like A minus and all that? Oh no.
It is. And Foothill. So I got like a minus on a grade before and it's no longer, it like docks to like 0.3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like my OCD would just be so terrible.
Man, I should have known that before. Just kidding. I love De Anza. Anyways.
I just want to mention that some of the A&P classes at Foothill are just A, B, C, D. So like I clutched that class and I got 90.01%. So
oh my God, that's crazy. Clutch.
Yeah.
That's a clutch game. But Yeah, not all classes. Like I took a physics class and that was a
Oh,
tragedy.
damn. Okay.
Moving on to
Uh,
the next question. Sorry, Megan, did you want to say something?
Oh, do you want me to take over?
Oh yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have another question about the TEAS test. Do you remember what your study methods were? And do you mind sharing
Yes.
them?
So I bought, I can't remember. I don't know if you guys know if I describe it. It's like a big fat yellow book. I think it's the Mometrics brand. And so I studied off that. Well, I mean, I tried to, but it's a really fat book. So honestly, I didn't get through it. And I also bought the practice exams right off like the ATI website. And I found those to be most helpful because I was able to, just sit down and actually go through the exam and learn how to manage my time in each question. And also, so I did one before as like a diagnostic to learn which subjects I needed to practice a little bit more on. And then I brushed up on those in my Memetrics book. And I also did like some random online like quizzes and things when I was lazy to take a whole like 3-hour test. And at the end, like a week before I took my exam, I did my second ATI test just to kind of gauge how I was doing in my studies. But I didn't take it paper and pencil just because I was in a rush to get my scores in time. And the only like location that was available at the time was for me to take it at East Bay. And so I took it on a computer, which is something I didn't really like personally because I'm used to doing my math calculations on an actual physical calculator. But since I took it on a computer, I had to use like, the stupid, like you have to click on all the numbers. And so I feel like that made me like always have to double check my calculations over and over again to make sure I pressed the right key. And that took in some of my time. But the perk to that was you got to get your score right away instead of having to wait, a couple of days for someone to actually grade your paper and pencil exam. So I guess it's up to personal preference.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. And we have another question regarding applications to nursing school. Do you have any general tips or any specific tips when applying to nursing school?
So I can't really speak about that just because when I was applying to SJSU's nursing program at the time, they were only looking at GPA and Ts. And so I didn't really have a lot of volunteer experience or healthcare type of experience going into it because I was solely focused on getting into SJSU. And so when I applied to other programs, there were a lot of other requirements that I hadn't prepared for. Like East Bay required like a letter of recommendation and like a form of, like your healthcare experience or volunteer experience and things like that. And so I guess my biggest advice would just be do your research on which program you want to get into first. And so you can plan ahead of time, oh, I need to get so and so hours of healthcare experience just to apply to this program and make myself a strong applicant. Well, actually, SJSU now, I think I heard they started asking for that. And so you guys can start preparing yourselves for that. We also recently changed, I know this is unrelated to the question, but I'm in the 3-year program. And so I did my prereqs for 1.5 years and the nursing program is 3 years. And so my whole degree is taking 4.5 years. Now they changed the nursing program to 2.5 years. And so if you finish your prereqs early, if you have like AP classes or anything, you can finish your prereqs in a year, do the new program in 2.5 years and graduate in 3.5. So I guess it just depends on your own progress. But while I'm talking about this, I just remembered that during like my first 1.5 years of college, I was always taking like more than 12 units, like 15, 16, 17, just because typically, how they say that your prereqs take around 2 years. I didn't want to wait 2 years because 2 years plus a 3-year nursing program, I wasn't going to wait 5 years to graduate. And so I really pushed myself, to take winter classes, summer classes, and be more than full time during a regular semester as well, which is why, my previous advice was to remember self-care. um, so yeah, I guess I just wanted to put that in just because sometimes you might feel rushed to graduate earlier on time, but as long as you get to the destination that you want to, it doesn't really matter how long it takes you to get there.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question, because like, yeah, we're all in the middle of applying to nursing school. So it's like, yeah, good luck to everyone. But we have another question. Since you said you're graduating in a month,
Mhm.
when do you plan to take the NCLEX, or have you already taken it?
So you can't take it until you actually graduate. And so I'm planning to take it hopefully in February and pass. Because after nursing school, you apply for new grad residency programs at the local hospitals that you do want to get a job at. And I really want to work at Stanford, and their new grad program starts in March. And so I really have to pass in February if I want to start in March, or I would have to wait until the next application cycle.
And we have another question. Someone asked, what GPA would one need to have to get into SJSU's nursing program? Or what's the average GPA you can
It
say?
really depends, just because you don't know how many people are applying with you and who, how strong they are as well. Just because, so they rank you on your GPA, your T's, and I guess now SJSU is adding extra points for, healthcare experience. So they add those numbers together and they just put you down on a list and choose the first 60. And then the rest are on a wait list or get denied. And so like someone in my cohort, actually, I think the minimum on a T score is 73%. He actually got a 73% and he made it into my cohort. And it was just because, he was bad at test taking, but he still had like a high GPA, like 3.7, 3.8. And someone else in my cohort actually ended up getting like a C in micro. And so it's totally possible to, get into a nursing program if you do like have a little mishap on a grade or a test score. It's not impossible, but you also don't really know how strong the rest of the applicant pool is. So, always still strive to get the best grades.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your response. Julie had a question that I think a lot of people have too, including me. How can you make sure to maintain your mental health and prevent from burning out? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot and like just cramming those, because you said you don't want to graduate in like 5 years, so you're just cramming it in the
Yeah.
summer. How do you find that balance, and how do you maintain your mental health?
When I find the answer, I'll get back to you. But right now, I think it's just like I'm very type A, so I like to get things done on time and the right way. And so having a schedule helps me. If like possible, I try to at least schedule like half a day to myself to do whatever I want. And that sort of helps. But, sometimes it's not always possible because I don't know, like I'm tired from work one day and I don't want to study that night. And so that pushes me behind. And so I guess it's also learning to accept that a lot of things are out of your control and just learning how to go with the flow, which is something I'm still learning how to do.
Mhm. And adding on to that question, how are you doing when you were working as a CNA while attending, like doing your prerequisites? How was doing that?
I actually didn't work as a CNA until I started nursing school. So I did. So during my prereqs, I just like worked the job I had while I was in high school, which is just like a teacher's assistant in an after school program, because they were the most flexible in, giving me hours when my classes were all over the place. And then during the semester that I had off and applying to programs, nursing programs, I attended a CNA course. And so I got my CNA license and then I started nursing school. But then nursing school was really demanding. And so I didn't really want to work as a CNA because it's really heavy work. And I really respect my classmates who are CNAs and in nursing school, but I decided to work as a medical assistant instead, just because during downtime in the clinic, I would have time to study. And, I already had like a busy schedule. And so if I were to work as a CNA, I'm also not a morning person. And so if I had to like wake up at like 5 every single day, I would be so tired. And so, working in an outpatient clinic setting was just better for my mental health because I would get to sleep in a few hours. I would have downtime to study in the clinic while still being able to get, my hands-on experience.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that because I got my CNA certification just this year, but I actually haven't started working.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't start working for CNA until I was like, hey, it's been like 2 years. My certification is going to expire. And so I should probably find a job. And so I did that for a couple months before I went to Mayo, and then I quit just because they were very mean and didn't let me have the summer off to do my externship. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Because when I come back, I'm going to graduate anyway. So yeah.
Oh, can you, if you're comfortable with this, can you elaborate about your experience as working as a CNA?
Yeah, so I actually worked at like a pediatric recovery center because I'm most interested in becoming a peds nurse. So I mean, I think this is the thing about like working at a nursing home or nursing home type facility is that like I just found the work very repetitive, and I didn't really feel like I was making much of a difference in my patients' or clients' lives. And it was just really sad for me to see a lot of patients, or especially, the place I was working at, they were like in a coma or they were just lying there by themselves. And I saw like a lack of funding and resources for them. Like versus in the hospital, if a patient's in a coma, you could ask for music therapy to come or something like that. And CNAs, especially in nursing home facilities, are very stretched thin. And so sometimes, I mean, you don't want it to happen, but it does that some clients get neglected. And so, yes, it's a good stepping stone, but I would suggest that if you guys are able to get that experience, I would apply to do a CNA job in a hospital where you might feel better appreciated. That's one. And two, you would also make really great connections there. And if the nurses there know that, you're nursing school or wanting to be a nurse and they see something cool, they'll be able to teach you more about that, show you some things, and get on good terms with the nursing manager. You might have a job after graduation too. In some
Yeah.
hospitals, I could suggest are Washington Hospital hires a lot of students. VMC also hires a lot of students, but they don't call it CNA. They call it HSA, which is Hospital Services Assistant. And they hire a lot, like all the time. Like all the time. So you can keep your eye out and then do that. What other hospitals? Stanford also hires students, but it can get really hard to get a job there unless you're in nursing school. But I know VMC hires a lot of students because it's a county hospital and they're always needing help. The thing with those hospitals is they don't actually require you to have your CNA certification. So it's a good thing that you already have it. And then you can use that to one up someone else who is just like a nursing student with no certification who's applying.
Yeah, thank you for your answer because I've been wanting to work at a hospital, but I haven't actually like started applying because of a lot of commitments in my life because I'm working as a tutor at my college right now. So that takes a lot of my time. But
yeah. And
yeah.
on that train of thought, you can apply for per diem positions, which is just like kind of sort of on-call / relief and help. So you really only have to work 4 shifts a month. And so if you think about that, that's 2 weekends or just once a week. And so a lot of nursing students do that just because it's very minimal commitment and still allows you a lot of flexibility to do other things.
do you know how hard it is to get into like those kind of hospital positions if you're not in nursing school right now?
I wouldn't think it's hard just because I know they do hire like CNAs as well. Like, you know, if you just went to CNA school and you just want to work as a CNA, but I think it might be beneficial for you to have some sort of experience that you could speak about during your interview because they'll most likely ask you behavioral type questions like, oh, tell me about a time you did this for a patient, or tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult patient and how did you respond to that? What thing did you do to help resolve that issue? And if you know, haven't really had patient experience to speak on that, you might not be as strong of an applicant as someone else who's in nursing school and, you know, went to clinical and had these type of patient experiences. So, I mean, you can always try applying, but if you do get rejected to those hospital jobs as your first, just do know that, you know, hospital jobs do require experience. And so if you want to just try to suck it up for a couple months in like a nursing home or anything. And I'm not trying to like say that working in a nursing home sucks. It's just personally for me, like I just really heartbreaking, and I didn't feel well supported in that environment versus than in a hospital.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for your response. Someone asked in the chat if can you please repeat the names of the places that are hiring, like
Yes.
usually hiring?
So VMC, which is Valley Medical Center, which is the hospital on Bascom, like right next to SJCC. And they're part of like the Santa Clara County hospitals along with, oh my gosh, what's that hospital called? O'Connor, and another one in Gilroy, which I forget the name, but it's kind of far, so I wouldn't apply there anyways because the commute would suck. And also Stanford and Stanford Children's, which is Lucille Packard, and Washington Hospital. And also, I just remembered you could also look for patient observer or sitter positions, which is kind of like a CNA, but just for one patient. And you sit there for mostly like behavioral patients who may be suicidal or harm for themselves or anything like that. And so that's a pretty chill job to have too, which you can also have per diem. And those hospitals should also offer those positions, but more specifically, El Camino Hospital in Mountain View has like a separate patient observer position that you can apply for. And they also have CNA positions as well. You could also apply to those as a student.
Okay, yeah, thank you for your
Mhm.
response. We'll definitely utilize that. And we also have another question in the chat asking, do you always have to apply to residencies or can you start working as a new grad right away?
It depends on the facility. If you are going to work in like a hospital, they do require residencies to some degree. Some programs are lengthier than others just because as a new grad, you aren't very full equipped to take on a full patient assignment. And so the residency program is going to pair you with someone who's going to train you on the job until you are ready to be independent on your own. But, you know, if you were to work like outpatient or in like a nursing home, there aren't residency programs for that. They would probably just train you for a couple weeks and then you're on your own.
Thank you for your response.
Mhm.
We have another question asking if you had any healthcare experience before applying to nursing school.
I did not. During my prereqs, I kind of just focused a lot on getting the best grades that I could because I knew San Jose State wasn't looking at them. So I didn't waste my time trying to do other things. But I know it's different now. So I'm really sorry that you guys have so much to balance all at once.
It's all right. It's because nursing school is getting so competitive. But yeah, thank you. Someone asked, how did you become a medical assistant? Because you're doing nursing school and
Mhm.
all these stuff. So how did you have that time to like become a medical assistant? Did you do it at a local community college?
I actually didn't take a medical assisting course. I just like applied for a medical assistant job and asked them to train me on the job. And since I didn't have, my medical assistant certification, I wasn't paid as high as someone who would have, which was fine for me because, I was there mostly to gain the experience. If you did want to work where I did work, the company is called Action Urgent Care, and they have a lot of openings around San Jose. They are just, like any other private company who wants a lot of money, and so they might lowball you, but it was good experience.
Okay, yeah, thank you. It looks like some people in the chat know that place and have similar experience. Amy asked, did they understaff you?
Yeah, they did. So, yeah, it was a little bit traumatic, but I got to learn a lot of things.
How long did you work? Like the duration?
So I started working there June of 2019. So I think I was in like my second semester of nursing school, and I worked at the Montague location, and I worked there until like COVID times, when all of a sudden like our manager was like, oh, can we have a location meeting? And then she was like, oh, we're closing this location down, so you're all fired. And so that's why I stopped working there. But it's okay. I was on to bigger and better things.
Oh my gosh. That sounds, oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't imagine. Uh, moving on, because that is a bit, yeah. To the next question, is HSA only open to CNA, like you mentioned earlier, HSA? Could a person with an EMT certification also apply as a HSA?
You'd have to look it up because I'm not sure like what the requirements are. I mean, I would assume that EMT certifications could, put you higher in the applicant pool. Now that I'm thinking about this, there's also like positions as like COVID swabbers and stuff like that, that people in my program have been posting about that for those with CNA or EMT certification. And so maybe after this, I could send Amy the flyer, and then she can share that with all of you. And you get paid pretty good. I think it's like $25 an hour. Just swabbing people, or standing there supervising swabbing people. And that would count as healthcare experience for your nursing applications.
Oh my God, that sounds, wow.
Yeah, like
Wow.
yes, I want to expand on my nursing skills, like if I were in your position, but like imagine like waking up so early and then having to be stretched thin and treated poorly in a nursing home, and paid less than why you would be standing somewhere and just swabbing someone, So you have to think about yourself too. Like when I worked as a CNA, so the SJSU nursing program, we have this thing called semester 4, which they call like the deadliest semester, because it's a semester where people flunk the most and it's the semester that the exams are the hardest. And so my CNA certification happened to be expiring at that time, and so I was working as a CNA while going through this deadly phase of semester 4. And I felt like I didn't have time to do anything, and I was just so burnt out. And I was just, glad that chapter ended earlier than it needed to.
Oh my God. Yeah, because like you mentioned, swabbing. I saw the swabbing advertisement. It was like 20 something dollars an hour. And I was like, this over a nursing home. I mean, nursing home over this. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know the pandemic caused you guys a lot of inconveniences with your classes and stuff, but there are benefits now. There are different jobs that you can do, like COVID swabbing. That wasn't an option before, and now you have that opportunity to expand on your skills. And like when you're writing on a resume, even though you didn't really have much like patient interaction, you could like write that you had different skills, like, you know, communicating and collaborating within a team, being careful with like doing your lab requisitions and double checking that, you know, being well versed in charting and, you know, stuff like that. So there's always like ways to highlight your experience, even though it might seem insignificant. If you put time into it, then you should very well highlight it in your application and just find the best way to put it in a good light for others to view it, even if, you know, it was something as quote unquote simple as COVID swabbing. Just have to sell
Okay.
yourself well.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. And we're gonna head on to our last question, which is, Brittany asked, should I be worried if I don't have any healthcare experience since there weren't many opportunities for volunteering during COVID?
I think in like terms of nursing school applications, I wouldn't be so worried if, you know, you have the grades and T-score to get into. And so these other healthcare experiences are just to supplement you if, you know, you had a bad grade in the class or your T-score wasn't as high as you wanted it to be. But if you do have a 4.0 and a high T-score and that, then good job to you, hats off to you. But like I wouldn't be worried if your application is lacking in some manner because it's not impossible to get in. It might take like more than one like application cycle, but it's not impossible.
Okay, so thank you for your responses. Now we're gonna, it was very helpful, like, especially since a lot of our members right here in this session right here are applying to nursing school this winter, I mean, not winter, the end of this month.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for your responses.
Yeah, if you guys have like any other questions that come up after this, you can always DM me on Instagram as well, and I'd be happy to help.
Oh my gosh, yes. Nurse Tina on the Instagram. We'll paste it in the chat. And before we end this meeting, we're gonna take a group photo. So if any of the members would like to be in this group photo, please unmute your camera and we will be taking the photo.
All right, everyone, if you're comfortable,
I
feel
think
free to
it's
turn on your
impossible.
camera. Okay, everyone, be happy.